Hi, friends. I'm excited to try and straighten out for you the differences between guest blogging versus contributing versus being featured or interviewed. You might even hear stuff about being mentioned or quoted. There are all these different ways to see your name and your business's name mentioned and hopefully even linked to on major outlets like Forbes and Inc. and Entrepreneur, or maybe in your space it's Women's Health and Shape, whatever those publications are where you want to be featured so that people can start viewing you as the expert in your niche. There are a lot of different ways to get there, and I find that people get a little confused about what those different ways are and how you get them. So first, I'm going to break down what the difference is between guest blogging versus contributing versus being featured or interviewed. What's the real difference in terms of what is it actually? And then what's the difference in terms of what it does for your business and what you can expect out of that type of coverage. And then I'll tell you a little bit too about how you start getting it. So let's get going. All right, guest blogging is when you write on someone else's site, and that could be anything from Forbes to your friend who has a content marketing blog. So anytime you're writing on someone else's site, I would call that a guest blog. And in the way that I hear most editors and people in the media refer to it, a guest blog is usually a one-off. You're just going to write for that outlet one time. That is in contrast to being a contributor. A contributor is going to write guest blogs on a more regular basis. Sometimes there's an actual contractual agreement with the outlet. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes you've got to write a certain minimum number of guest blogs per month. Sometimes you don't. So for example, I am a contributor at both Forbes and Entrepreneur, which means I write for them both on a regular basis. Forbes requires that I write 5 posts a month at a minimum. Now, things come up and there are reasons why I might write fewer than that and might get permission from my editor to write fewer than that. But Forbes doesn't really accept one-off guest blogs any longer. You really have to become a contributor. The same is true for Inc. And they both have that minimum number of posts you write a month at 5 right now. It may change in the future. So if you're watching this on a replay months or years from now, maybe that's changed. But right now, that is 5 each. So that's kind of the difference between guest blogging versus contributing. And just as a side note, Entrepreneur, where I also contribute, does not have a minimum number of times per month. So people write there less frequently, and they do take one-off guest blogs, not just contributed pieces. So a little different than Forbes and Inc. Success takes one-offs as well. You don't necessarily have to become a contributor. Every outlet's different as to whether they allow you to write one-offs or if they want you to commit to being that longer-term contributor. Okay, so that's the difference between guest blogs and contributing. Then you have features, interviews, mentions, quotes. Those are all when someone else is writing about you or your business. So they are the guest blogger or the contributor, or maybe they're a staff writer or a reporter or a full-time journalist. It's their byline going on the article. So they are going to be talking about you or about your business. And this might vary from person to person in terms of how they would explain this, but this is how I view it. A feature is all about you or your business. There's really just one subject in a feature. Same thing most of the time in an interview, although sometimes you'll see interview style pieces where they're interviewing more than one person. Whereas a mention or a quote is going to be multiple voices in the story. If you watched my live from earlier this week, I talked about having multiple voices in your story. So maybe they're getting advice on work-life balance, and they talk to 3 different female entrepreneurs to give their best advice on work-life balance. If you were one of those 3 women who was quoted in the piece, I would call that a mention or a quote. I wouldn't call it a feature because you maybe only got one quote and the whole piece wasn't about you. To me, and like I said, some people might interpret this differently, but to me, a feature is all about you or your business. You are the focus of the article. An interview, you're usually the focus, but sometimes they'll interview multiple people for a story, a mention or a quote. You are among several voices in the story. So here's the difference in terms of how all those different things might impact your business. You've probably heard me say this before, but guest blogging or contributing, huge credibility builder, especially when you're on a publication that's well known in your niche, whether it's well known to the rest of the world or not. All that really matters is that it's well known to your ideal client or customer. So big credibility builder. But it's not normally a good traffic generator. You're not normally going to see the traffic on your website blow up. You're not normally going to see your list grow, because usually when you're the one writing, you don't get to link to your own stuff in the piece. They usually have very clear rules about that. You're going to get a link in your bio that might be at the beginning of the article or at the end of the article, but you're not normally going to be able to link to your own website, your own book, your own program, your own landing page inside the piece itself. Now, those rules differ from outlet to outlet, but I'll tell you, for most of the major well-known outlets, you are not going to be able to link to your own stuff. And that's why a guest blog or contributed piece doesn't necessarily bring you traffic or add to your list. However, if you've listened to me for very long, you've probably also heard me say one of the reasons I love being a contributor for places like Forbes and Entrepreneur is it has been a huge source of speaking leads for me. I get a lot, in fact, the majority of my paid speaking, if it's not from a direct referral, it's from writing for outlets like Forbes. So guest blogging to me positions you as an expert, huge credibility builder, looks great in front of your audience. You get in front of new audience, a new audience, new people that maybe haven't heard about you before. Can bring speaking leads, not just for me, but I've seen it happen for clients as well, but probably not going to drive a ton of traffic to your website or grow your list. Whereas a feature, an interview, a quote, a mention, when someone else is writing about you, they usually can include a link to your site or your book or your program or whatever it is. So you will get that link, and you may see that you do get that spike in traffic and that you grow your list. Totally on kind of a case-by-case basis. I've had clients whose Facebook groups were mentioned in articles and picked up hundreds and even thousands of members in a day. I've had other clients who've had their book linked in an article and couldn't really trace any sales to it. So it's going to depend what outlet it's in. It's going to depend how much that article got distributed, how many people actually read the article. It's going to depend on if the article was a really good fit for what was linked to. There are a number of different factors that I think go into whether or not you see a lot out of that. But you are far more likely to see, I think, traffic and people added to your list or added to your group when you're featured, mentioned, whatever you want to call it, when someone else writes about you. Whereas I think that you are more likely to be establishing yourself as an expert, and you're doing that even with a feature or mention. But when you're a regular contributor to a big outlet, it does amazing things from an SEO perspective for you. And I found it gets me paid speaking gigs. It gets me paid consulting. It's got me book deals. I did a live on that a couple of weeks ago about all the things that guest blogging can do for you. But I just wanted you to understand there is a little bit of a difference between what happens when you're the writer versus when someone else is writing about you. So which one should you be doing? And the answer is all of it, because they do different things for you. So I would be going after all of it. And when we pitch our retainer clients, we pitch them for all of these opportunities. We want both. We want them to land guest blogs or even contributor roles, and we want other people to write about them and to link to them, because I think you get different things out of those experiences. So I want my clients to be doing all of it if possible. So the answer is do it all. How do you get these opportunities? I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but if you are wanting to guest blog or contribute, most sites put directions up on the site for how you submit. So look up something like submission guidelines and the name of the publication, or how to contribute, how to write for, and the name of the publication. Search those kind of things in Google, and you should find the page where they talk about how you submit a guest blog or a pitch for a guest blog, or how you become a contributor. So that's how you do that. If you don't already have a connection with the editor, or you're not working with somebody like me who already has that connection, that's what you're going to be looking up to pitch yourself. If you want someone else to write about you, what we do, our strategy is that we find writers who have covered our client's topic in the past. So they've covered something related to what our client wants to talk about. So for example, one of my clients is an expert on experiential marketing. So I'm going to try to find writers who have written about subjects related to experiential marketing before, and then I'm going to pitch them a new angle on that. I'm going to reach out, I'm going to introduce my client, I'm going to say, we read your piece about experiential marketing in the music industry. I'd love to introduce you to my client who does it in the sports industry. Here's a little bit about them. So you're reaching out directly to the writer. You're reaching out to a writer who has covered the topic before, so you know they have some interest in it. You know it's a topic that their outlet will pick up. And then you are pitching them on you being this expert source they can use if they ever write in the future again about that subject. So that is how you do that. I know if there are some of you who are here live, so I'm going to give you this opportunity. If you have any questions or want to talk any of this out, drop those in the comments for me. If you're watching this where it's syndicated over on my personal profile or in my group, the Visibility Workshop, you're going to want to come onto my page, Guide My Brand, find the original live feed there and leave your question there, because that's where I'm going to see it live, because I use Livelead, which shows you this video across all my channels. So you're going to want to come over to Guide My Brand. If you want to ask a question, I'd be happy to answer it. If you watch this on the replay and you have a question, by all means, leave that in a comment and I will come back to it. I promise. I love talking about this kind of stuff. If you've got something I haven't covered in one of my lives and you're like, oh, I wish you would just tell us how to do this, send me a message, leave me a comment, tell me what that thing is, and I would love to do a live on it. I am always looking for new things to talk about and love talking about anything PR related. So I hope you are all out there pitching yourself and putting yourself out there for these opportunities, because they really can change your life, your career, your business. So I hope you're out there taking advantage of all these free publicity opportunities that are all over the place out there. If you've got questions or comments, leave those for me and I will come back for them. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day.